to have you all here. We're excited to relaunch our cross-country check-ins, and I think that's one of the better things that has come out of COVID for us as an organization, is being able to reach out and meet with all of you on and chat about our profession and how we can collaborate and work together. And it has been really great to develop this community of practice. And so today we have folks with us straight across the country, east to west, north to south. So it's really brought people together in a way that we normally wouldn't have the opportunity to. So thanks for being with us today and giving us a little bit of your last hours of vacation before the unknown of September starts. And I'll pass it over to my co-host, Doug.
Awesome. So welcome everyone officially. I don't have too much to add to what Lori said, but we're going to start with a bit of a, sorry, I've got several screens going, so I have to remember what I was going to say. There we go. Not remember, I'm just reading. So we just want to take a little bit of a time to review kind of where we've been and where we're at now and where we're going in terms of I guess a profession, if you want to call it that, at this point. And then we'll do that fairly quickly, and then we'll just open it up for people to share and talk. We don't have specific themes. We are going to run a couple of polls as we chat, and then also when you like, feel free to share, and you can share in the chat, as lots of people are saying hi in there, so feel free to share. You can put questions in the chat if you want. We do have a couple people helping us look for hands up or waves or people in the chat that say they want to say something. So but don't be afraid to jump in if we've missed you, because there's lots of screens going on. But also, just if you are sharing verbally, which we would encourage, of course, just remember we have I don't know how many people, 128 people on here right now, and growing. So just keep it tight, and because we really want a chance for everyone across the country to be able to share as much as possible. And it's also helpful, some of you have it on in your name, but it's helpful when you share just to remind people of where you are, because some people will know and some people won't. I was gonna make some kind of a joke. I wore my Tragically Hip shirt today because I was trying to make some kind of pun about the Tragically Hip situation we're in, but it didn't really work. So anyways, I'll leave it there. I should have worn my PHE Canada shirt like Lori did, but we'll make it roll. So Ellen is going to share her screen, and we'll just there we go. Excellent. And then we'll just move to the next one, Ellen. Thank you. We just wanted to start with a check-in poll. So I think Ryan's running the polls. So we've got all sorts of, it's like having a crew. This is awesome. Just a quick check-in poll. Oh, okay, that'll work. So yeah, where's your stress level now for the fall start? So if you can fill that in, that would be great. And we'll give you some time to do that. The other one that maybe after this one's done, Ryan will put up the one, we just are interested to see how many check-ins you've been on. So the next poll we'll do is just, have you been on every chat? You've been on 3+ or 1+, and so we'll get there. So we'll leave that poll up for the moment. And then if we can move to the next slide, please, Ellen. So yeah, just kind of a capper, and then I'll turn it over to Lori for the next few slides. But of course, you all know this in terms of the impact, but just a couple key things that kind of emerged. So immediately there was a lot of talk, and there was a lot of just, I guess, a lot of angst. There was a lot of uncertainty what to do, and in that uncertainty, a lot of physical and health education was omitted and just gone. Some people were able to pick it up just fine and make it work. Others were explicitly told not to do so. I shared on one of the polls, one of my teacher friends who was teaching health and phys ed was switched to now being a English and religion teacher, just overnight, basically. We also saw kind of a big, more confusion than usual, perhaps, about the difference between physical education and physical activity. And I think it was an opportunity for us to learn. I took part in a chat with the ASAP group, which is an international group of phys ed teacher educators and sport pedagogues, and the Joe Wicks phenomenon in the UK. But it was a really interesting opportunity for us to advocate for what is phys ed and what do we do. So obviously there was a steep learning curve for this emergency teaching, emergency learning. We definitely lost some of that experiential stuff, but it was interesting to see how some people picked it up. I know in my neighborhood, once things relaxed a bit, I saw a lot more kids outside than normal, a lot more kids moving. So we know students are active learners. They've lost some social networks. The inequity thing and the, I think it again drew, lost for words, but it really pointed out the need for a concern for equity in education and who has Wi-Fi, who doesn't. And right now, there are lots of parents who they can't have their kids at home learning that way. And so we're learning how to deal with that in little different ways. And then of course the stress and anxiety. So most of you have a higher stress level, 46% higher than June. Very few have a lower stress than June. And I know that there's some really tough situations that are going on right now in terms of going back to school, and it's looking a little different, and we'll get to that as we go on. But that's kind of what we've gone through, in case you forgot. So I'll turn it over to you, Lori.
Thanks, Doug. And I think one of the things that we can bring forward is that we've had the experience of kind of the chaos in the spring, so that maybe we have some learnings that we can bring forward into the fall and into this school year, so that there could be some more smoother transitions for us than we had. One of the things PHE has been able to do, and I have to credit the national office staff for their incredible hard work and their ability to pivot and provide our members with resources that were timely and really designed for at-home learning. And so the At-Home Learning Center was its original title in the spring, because we wanted families also to be able to connect to our site and look at the resources that we were offering, specifically around some of the lesson plans for health and physical education. And we decided as an organization to continue with that into this school year. However, we've changed the name to the PHE Learning Center. And we have added over 80 new lesson plans and resources to this site, or to this page on our site. And we just kind of wanted to bring that back to you, because we know that right now you're starting to look at some of your regional opening plans or your provincial opening plans, and trying to decide how you're going to deliver your curriculum this year based on the different public health protocols in your area. And so we want you to know that these resources are there for you to use, and they are designed for the pandemic environment that we find ourselves in. So just wanted to kind of bring you back to there, and at your leisure go through and share this with others. Ryan just put up our next poll. We just wanted to get an idea of how many of you have been a part of our cross-country check-ins in the past. So you kind of have your list there. And so if you want to go ahead and fill that in, it just gives us an idea of who's in the room, and we can kind of go from there. So if you want to go ahead and fill that in. And while you're doing that, like I said earlier, these cross-country check-ins really came out of the need for us and our membership to connect. We knew we weren't going to be able to have our national conference and be able to network and collaborate in the typical way that we usually do, or we usually have in the past. And so we developed these check-ins so that we could connect and create a stronger network and help each other advocate for health and phys ed in our regions and our provinces. Many of us were quite disappointed in the spring when our provincial ministries decided that health and phys ed wouldn't be on the at-home learning packets, or wouldn't be a main focus of at-home learning, and numeracy and literacy kind of took top rank. And so these check-ins just provided us the opportunity to support each other, especially for those of us who are phys ed teachers in solo phys ed teachers in our building and don't have colleagues to collaborate with, and to just see what's happening across the country and garner strength from each other. And so just looking at the posting or the poll results, so we have 28%. This is your first check-in, so welcome. We're glad you're here. We try to keep them pretty light. These are for you, our members, to have a conversation. So typically we just start off with an introduction and kind of go through some of the main things that we've been working on as an organization, but then we open the floor up to you. So you can have a conversation that is meaningful for you and that you walk away feeling like you've spent some quality time with colleagues. So 28% is new to us, 4%, 2 to 5, 50%, great, welcome back. So it's great to have you all here, and hopefully we can continue these in the future so that we can stay connected and stay strong together. Just over the past couple of months as well, because again, we knew that we weren't going to be meeting together in PEI for our conference in the spring, that we developed our Spotlight series. And our Spotlight series were comprised of different colleagues from across the country talking on different topic areas. So from health education to physical literacy to physical education during pandemic, assessment, etc. So our Spotlight series, we will continue with this in some sort of format, we hope, into the future. So it's a great opportunity for professional development on your time. So each one of the sessions were videotaped so that if you weren't able to attend the session at that point in time, they were uploaded and posted to the Spotlight series section of our website. So again, another opportunity for professional development we know is going to be limited this year and into the foreseeable future. So it just, again, gives us an opportunity to stay current in our practice, and again, it's Canadian and it's relevant to what we are and who we are and what we're doing. And the next, so the return to school guidelines. These have been widely accepted across the country, which we are thrilled to say. Many of our ministries have used these guidelines to help them develop their own back to school guidelines for health and physical education. And again, this is a resource that we wanted to create to support not only health and physical education in its return to school, but also to help, I guess the way we wanted to is to not highlight it, but maybe put a spotlight on it as to its importance in returning to school and what the impact of having time to move and focus solely on your health and well-being in a curricular area, and how that can positively impact our students and our families as we try to navigate these new waters. There's also different resources that are linked to the guidelines. So getting into the more specifics, the guidelines are kind of the overall how of having a PE and health education program. And we are now getting into kind of some of the more specifics around, use of equipment, sanitization, and delivery of curriculum. So please check those out. It's a great resource. And again, share it widely. And Doug, I'm going to turn it back over to you for the next little bit.
Okay, so obviously we're at a point now of getting ready to return to school, whatever that looks like, wherever you may be. I just wanted to point out one more link to the PHE site in terms of the staff has also looked at just compiling what the return to school guidelines are and links for each province and territory. So you can just check that. So if you're ever wondering, well, what do other people need to do other than people that are going to share on the chat in a moment, but those are there. So if you're looking for, maybe if you have a principal that says, no, you can't do that, but you look at another province and they're doing that, it's just another piece of evidence to say, well, they are doing it over here, so I think we could adapt this here, as long as, again, it doesn't convene or doesn't contradict your own district's and jurisdiction's guidelines. But yeah, it's not going to be the same. Lots of things are going to be different. I mean, I've been reading lots of news articles on how, like for my own role in post-secondary and what post-secondary is going to look like. And no one's really sure what's going to happen. I mean, we still need to have learning. We still need to do that, but there's a lot up in the air. So it's also an opportunity for us to start to shape some things and to kind of redo some stuff. It reminds me of now he's kind of fallen out of favor just a little bit due to a number of reasons, but when Lance Armstrong first got cancer and then came back and won all his races, and of course we now know there were other factors involved with him winning all the races, but I read a really interesting article by a kinesiologist and a medical doctor who basically looked at the cancer was actually a blessing for him because he was able to reconstruct his body exactly for what he needed for racing. And I almost feel like we may be in a space right now that there's a chance, if we can get past a bit of the chaos and mayhem, that maybe this can be an opportunity to really shape things in a new way. We know that a focus on wellness, families were spending more time together. People were more aware of, man, I can't stay in the house all day. I need to get outside. Those are things that we can build on, I think. So it's not going to be easy, and I'm not trying to gloss over all the difficult stuff that's going on, but I do think we have an opportunity. So these guidelines will be updated periodically as they change, as they go through. And then this PowerPoint will be available as well, so you can have the links that are on here. I've put a couple links, and Faye just put a link in the chat as well, so that you can do this. And someone did also ask on the chat, is this being recorded? And yes, it is. And this and all the other chats are recorded as well. And so we're going to open it up here in a second with the next slide, which is your turn. And also, Ryan, can you put up the last poll, which is just so we'd like to keep doing these. We've heard from people, Karen especially. Karen said in the chat that she'd like to keep these on. So for Karen's sake, if you could fill out the poll, what kind of timing should we be doing this check-in for? Do we want to do this once a month? Do we need to go every other month? Is it kind of once between now and December, or are we good? Do we not need them anymore? So if you don't mind filling that poll out. But really from here, so lots of us are stressed. More of us are more stressed now than we were in June. And so, yeah, let's open it up. What's going on? What would you like to discuss in chat? Just remember, again, we've got lots and lots of people on the chat here, which is great. So feel free to weigh in. We're sitting at 156 people now. And you can also discuss in the actual, you can actually chat on the chat in the chat box, or just open it up. So how are things going? What are you worried about other than the obvious? Any questions? Are you wondering what other people might be doing that you can get help with? So away we go. Don't forget to unmute. And it's looking right now that a monthly chat is winning the race at the moment.
So maybe I can throw out a question. We seem to have a shy group today. You know, if what is one thing that you think that the chats would be able to provide you, or what is an area that you want to chat about that we can maybe start thinking forward to support you better?
Hi. Hello.
Hello.
I would like some practical ideas for games that we could play that don't require any equipment and that we can play while there's social distancing. I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around that.
Yeah, anyone want to jump in with some ideas or resources? I think there are a lot of resources online, but it's hard to find them all sometimes. Certainly the At-Home Learning Center, which is now just the PHE Learning Center, has a lot of those ideas there.
I purchased recently the CRA 2 meter by 2 meter resource, and it was made specifically for the upcoming year, re-COVID, keeping distance away from each other. And it has really good, like, I think it's, I don't know, 100 pages or something, and really great resources and games to play that are minimal equipment or no equipment at all.
Hi, just had a question.
Mm-hmm.
So this CRI, is this something that is purchased like as an individual teacher, or is this something that's purchased throughout the board, through schools?
I purchased it for $25 online, and it was sent directly to me. So I bought it for myself as a physical teacher or whatever I'm teaching next year. So you can buy it for yourself, or you ask your administration to purchase it out of your phys ed budget, or for several teachers in the school, for that matter, out of their school.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Hi, it's Tanya Woods from HDSB. We actually purchased a board membership for Halton District School Board, and purchased a copy of the CIRA resource for all of our schools in elementary. And if you do purchase a board membership to CIRA, then you do get a discount on all of their books. So it was actually one of our HDSB teachers that wrote the Fair and Square 2 meter by 2 meters. So it's a compilation of a bunch of CIRA resources, as well as some newer games that have been placed in there. But it's a great resource, definitely, for any teacher, not just a phys ed teacher, moving forward.
Hi, everyone. I thought I would share what the resource looks like that you're talking about from CIRA. It's Karen August from the York Catholic Districts Board here in Ontario, and we too purchased this resource, Fair and Square, from CIRA for all of our elementary schools. And there are some awesome games in here. I just opened the book to this specific game, and it doesn't use equipment, and it looks like a great one to play. I haven't read through the whole thing, We've also purchased OPHEA's, which is Ontario's Physical Health and Education resource for us here in Ontario. We've purchased the Activity Counts resource, which is another great resource for our teachers to use. We will be in the elementary panel teaching our own phys ed, and a lot of the teachers have concerns regarding equipment, and our board's re-entry plan is saying that of course be outside as much as we can, but also limit the amount of time in the gymnasiums inside and limit the amount of use of the equipment. They are saying that we can share the equipment, try not to, but if you're sharing it, then it needs to be disinfected between use. So our question at our board continues to be, well, is the disinfecting after each cohort's use or after each student use? So we need clarification around that. And at our board, we also need to know, our teachers are concerned about, well, who's cleaning the equipment, when is it getting done, and what are we using? We can't expect our custodians to be doing that because they have their hands full as well. So what I'm sharing with some of our teachers, especially in the primary, is to start with those games. First of all, you have to teach them what is 1 meter, what is 2 meters. Show them that with a meter stick, show them that with noodles. You need to teach that lines on the ground, buy that grass paint and paint on some spots, poly spots, hula hoops, etc. You need to teach what that looks like. And then make up games that where the students are moving from one spot to the next, sort of like Foursquare or Switch on the blacktop if you have those games. But they need to know what is that safe distance and be able to picture it in their mind. And then from there, you can play games like Simon Says, What Time Is It, Mr. Wolf? You can move on to Captain's Coming and all those other wonderful games that don't use equipment. And then the junior intermediates, they also are going to need to know what 1 and 2 meter distancing looks like in their mind to stay safe, either in the gym or outside. And perhaps they can start with soccer, where you're not allowing hands and the equipment's only being used with their feet, and perhaps it's the teacher who picks it up. We don't have all the answers at York Catholic, but we're trying to come up with different ways to support the teachers from our end. So I thought I'd share that with everyone.
Yeah, thanks, Karen. Appreciate that. I just following the chat, and Jennifer Walsh was saying that everything has to be disinfected and then in isolation for 3 days, all equipment. Seems excessive to me, but maybe not. Yeah, I think we're going to see a lot of changing protocols too as things go on, just because there's new information. I know there are some there's some research coming out too that shows that the transmission of COVID from contact is actually much lower than expected, but it's hard to just go on one study or one piece, and there's a lot of different information. So I'll just keep it open as people keep sharing what they're doing or questions that they've had. I know there's been lots of questions about sanitation, what's okay to use, what's not. Questions about change rooms. Isolate your bean bags. Make sure you isolate your bean bags. Has anyone made a plan for change rooms or changing, or we're just not going to bother this year? What are the thoughts out there on that?
Hi, Doug. It's George Curtis from Toronto. If I can weigh in a little bit. Thanks for the opportunity to you and PHE Canada. Working on a guide to reopen, we're calling it Reopening of HP in Toronto. And it's looking at things like change rooms. And we've got to go in with a different mindset. I mean, if you're used to a phys ed class where you have to be in a particular uniform, I think those are past practices that we need to re-examine and change. If you're asking for a certain t-shirt and kids going in a change room, I know I've gone into a few change rooms and taken some photographs and done my social distancing. And, you know, the one I was in 2 days ago and posted, 7 kids can go in at a time. And if it needs to be disinfected, then if we're only having one secondary class per day, kids should come prepared. And that's something new. And you know what? It's the resistance I'm fearing is not going to be from our kids. It's going to be from our fellow colleagues. And so I think we have to revisit some practices, especially using an equity lens, whether it's got to do with change rooms, whether it's got to the types of activities that we are using. I mean, my big suggestion is, hey, let's figure out your first step is to evaluate what equipment you do have in your school currently. And if it's to set up a few fitness bins or equipment bins, whether it's per class, then use that, number the rackets. That child can use that racket all week. Class B then uses it. I think we need to be creative instead of being resistant, and it will definitely look different. So I'm up for the challenge, and I'm hoping to assist all of our teachers in that challenge.
Thanks, George. That's helpful. I wonder too if there's a way. I know there's a way, but if as people or districts are creating these specific guidelines, and George, you're still in a consultant role, are you not?
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
And you know what? I think, Doug, sorry to add, I think it starts from hearing from your teachers. I had a Google Meet 2 weeks ago, and over 350 of our teachers took their time in the first week of August. And that's what's framed our approach, or at least the approach. It's not my thinking. I think we need to ask teachers.
Yeah, I would totally agree, George. And because everyone has different concerns, and also everyone has a different status of health. So we do have some teachers coming back to school who are very compromised themselves. And so we have to be aware of that as well. What I was going to say before George so rudely interrupted me with his brilliant idea of talking to teachers was I just wonder if, especially as consultants or individual schools are coming up with clear guidelines for things like change room, equipment, sanitation, if we could host those somewhere on the PHE website, or maybe just have a shared Google file folder where people can drop those guidelines in, if people are okay to share them, recognizing, excuse me, that we're all, we all have our own regulations, our own jurisdictions. But again, it's just good to learn from those other things, and someone might be doing something that we haven't thought of. So we'll, I know Ellen is behind the scenes here, and we'll look at what format would work for that, perhaps, if that's an idea that's going to work.
Hi, it's Carrie Parsons from New Brunswick. I was just wondering if I could ask what people are planning to do in terms, if we go back to a virtual environment, what people are planning to use as a platform for assessment.
Okay, so specifically a online platform for assessment.
Yeah, I'm just like in the planning ahead in case we go back to being at home. How are we going to assess our students?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Carrie. Anyone have any thoughts there?
Hi, Scott Taylor from Montreal. Our board is looking at using a couple different platforms in elementary schools. Seesaw, I think we're recommending Google Classroom to create a platform, but there has been discussions, which I don't know, among fellow PE teachers just about having a pass-fail for online, because it's very difficult to assess. So I'm wondering where people stand on that. Sorry to be a conversation killer.
Yeah. What do you think about that? Just, around assessment? And because I know a lot of teachers that I work with that really struggled with assessment at the high school level. At elementary level, we were not to assess in the spring, but in the high school, we maintained our PE programming, and they really struggled with the assessment piece. So anybody got any ideas out there? Because we could be doing this for a little while yet.
Hi, my name is Denise, we had the same situation back in the spring where we actually were also had to maintain assessment, and we use Seesaw and Screencastify as well. And so we did a couple of things. One, we actually created like a workout program for the kids to do on their own that included activities with their families where they had to take pictures of their families doing, you know, bingo games, making variety of snacks after a workout, things like that. So we used that. And then we also did fitness testing through Screencastify. It was actually easier on Seesaw. And what the kids just do is they just basically, we just did like a 1 minute, you know, burpees and whatever. There were a couple of different activities, and then the kids can just videotape themselves through their computers, again, assuming they have access to that, or they can use their phones, and then they just upload it into their individual file. So when you have Seesaw, each class has a folder for each student, and then they can submit their work there. They can also set goals, so you can have them set their goals for their fitness testing and things like that. So the kids actually really enjoyed it because we just made the testing really simple, and it wasn't about, again, being compared to anyone. It was just really about them being able to see their progress as they were continuing to maintain their physical activity.
It's me again, Scott Taylor. That sounds great. I was just thinking, because George, it comes from the teachers. I know there's lots of knowledge within everybody's board, and there are teachers that are better adept at technology. And I know in our board, we aren't afraid to pick each other's brains. So to go and get help in terms of setting up Seesaw if you have never used it before. So talking to other phys ed teachers within your board is pretty important.
Yeah, thanks, Scott, and thanks, Denise, for sharing those details. I think that's what's important with this chat. It's great to hear those details, whether they're in the typing chat or people are sharing. It's really helpful. And I won't weigh in a lot on the assessment piece, but I do think we're in a stage. A number of people have said, you know, we're not, you know, the medical office is changing things on a weekly basis, or the school board hasn't decided yet. We are still going to be in for some uncertainty, and we could get all like I can't remember who mentioned. Well, I think it was Carrie was looking at, you know, what happens if we have to go right back online, and that's a reality. Like we might start in the schools, and then by, you know, I'm thinking of starting a 50-50 draw based on the date we all have to go back to online learning and make some cash that way. But it's going to be uncertain, and we're going to have to be flexible, but that is what we do best. And I think phys ed, like teachers overall, are flexible and resilient, and that's been tested a lot. And if anything, health and phys ed teachers are even more flexible and resilient. But we also have to, take care of each other. And I think using each other as a resource is the biggest thing we can do right now too.
If I can add in there, hi Doug, and hi Denise, great to see you. Carolyn from Toronto, at Oise. I think one of the biggest things, and I agree, you just talked about being resilient, and when we talk about assessment, I think our biggest piece here is going to be helping our students just really looking at how do we support them with skill-based around attitudes and behaviors related to their own physical activity. You know, we're so focused on this movement competence piece, and so very traditionally thinking about skill acquisition, but it's going to be, like being okay with, you know what, we're going to have to create movement experiences that, you know, are going to look different. They are not going to be maybe some of the traditional sports and activities that we've done, particularly territorial games, trying to be more creative with some of those target games, those net wall games that you can do with physical distancing, looking at the personal fitness piece, look at inquiry-based learning, and perhaps it's, you know, it's one big sort of the students are looking at a goal for themselves over their own physical literacy journey this year, recognizing, okay, wow, we've had some, you know, it is going to look different. And then how do we help them build that resilience that if they do have to go back to remote learning, recognizing how they can use physical activity as a ways to self-regulate for that emotional well-being. So that in Ontario, we have a huge connection in our curriculum with social emotional learning at the elementary level, and the living skills, which are they're similar with respect to self-regulation, motivation, perseverance, all those things. That's going to be, I think, when we talk about assessment, what are step back and think, what are those big ideas that we really feel these skill sets the students are going to need in this next little while. Great to get them to acquire some specific skills, but it's an opportunity even to help them think about, wow, what's a new skill you'd like to acquire this year? Maybe even at home on your own time. If anybody hasn't had a chance to look at that, participation report card came in June, and it's a fantastic. Denise, you made me reminded me of that as you said that you connected with the family. Right? Like it's all about helping our kids. We recognize they're all also coming from different spaces with respect to privilege or marginalized with respect to the environments that they're coming from, their home environments. But it is an opportunity for them to sort of hopefully socially and physically connect through their families as well. So I think that's our biggest piece, is just supporting our kids to build that resilience through physical education.
Yeah, thanks, Carolyn. Those are important points. And looking at, I mean, we often say that, you know, phys ed is certainly more than physical activity, and this is an opportunity to really show that, right? When we, you know, it's not all about a beep test every time. Beep test might have its place, but it's not all about a beep test. And helping students develop autonomy and a sense of relatedness, whether it's online or face to face, those are super important.
I think too, just to kind of add on to that, is that, you know, and that some of us have had a conversation around just refinding the joy in movement again. And, you know, like we've seen in our neighborhoods, you know, families and children actually out of doors, recreating, moving. And when they're doing it, they're having conversations, they're creating memories, and so that's part of what we do as well. That's a big part of our learning. It's not just to help students develop skills, but it's also help them to develop those attitudes and the appreciations that go with movement, and those are the quality of life pieces that come along. And so if there was ever a time where that was needed, it's now. And we've seen some families kind of thrive through this, others not. But we have seen more movement than we have in a long time when it comes to looking out our doors and hearing children in our neighborhoods again. So I think that's a big part of what we need to do now going forward. Anybody else have any thoughts on that? So we've talked about, you know, resiliency within our students, but what about resiliency within ourselves? Like, what do any of you have any kind of words of wisdom around how you're going to make sure that you're doing some self-care during this time so that we can be there for our students and our families? And anything that you want to share, anything that's worked for you over the past 6 months?
Rachel, are you gonna have lunch?
Healthy eating, Karen. So just, you know, just some of the things I'm seeing in the chats, just some of the things that I've done, just to give an idea, is that I take 15 minutes every morning to just have quiet time. I set the coffee maker for the night before. I get up, I get my cup of coffee, and I sit and sometimes I meditate, sometimes I just sit out on my back porch and I just listen to the quiet, and it's before kind of the hubbub of the day gets started, and just to kind of center myself and just create a plan for my day. And then I get on with things. I don't look at my phone, I don't look at my emails, and so that's been really beneficial for me versus typically feet hit the floor and the day starts and away I go. So this has just been really great to just kind of take a few minutes to kind of gather my thoughts, just kind of have a few minutes for myself before I get things rolling. And so that's just something that I've been doing for my own self-care.
If I can share, Lori, I'm just going to translate to thinking about how we could share, because I think all of us here are fairly aware of, ways in which we can self-regulate. And I absolutely, and that's what we want to see in our students. I'm just going to try to maybe make that transition to teaching for the teachers there at the ground level. It speaks again more to how do we create that space for our students, as you just said, Lori, just recognizing that stillness, connecting to our embodying sort of that experience and connecting with our feelings and our emotions. I would really feel we're going to have to really think about in our phys ed time, creating more opportunities for conversations, for our students to connect with one another, whether it's through a walk and talk at the beginning of a class, at the end of a class, can consolidate. I think it's going to speak more and more, the importance is now more than ever before for really helping our kids connect to just what they've maybe experienced in phys ed. How does that make them feel? How does that help them manage, cope, recognize what some of the barriers are? And so just really being okay with seeing our space in physical education. We need to create, we want to get them moving. We want to get that moderate to vigorous activity. But now there's even more, I guess, a concern or need to really facilitate and help our kids connect to sort of understand what they've just experienced and share that with a friend, or and what was challenging, what were they proud of, right? So just that, I think, as far as assessment, there's lots of questions around assessment, helping them. That goes again to that big idea, what's the learning? And social emotional learning, self-regulation is key. So what are some ways we want to think about observations, but conversations is going to be really key as well. But you can do that through active pieces, right? Through a walk and talk and keep them moving. So just a thought, and that's helping with that self-care.
Yeah, thanks, Carolyn. I think that's a really key point, that time for students to reflect on their own learning, and also how they're feeling, their stress levels, and Health and Phys Ed is a great place for that. And there's lots of ways to do it, like you say, walk and talks, exit tickets. I've seen some really great stuff with just some laminated posters with how you doing today, and kids can put a sticky where it is. They can have their own magnetic little tab, like I've got on my magnetic board here, that has their name on it that they can put where they are. It's just interesting. I'm doing some work with Tim Fletcher at Brock and another prof in Ireland that started this meaningful physical education. And their website, I'll put it up. It's called LAMP. But one of the things that's emerging from the research as we're looking forward is that time for reflection. That if you want to focus on a meaningful experience for students and for teachers, there has to be some of that time. And initially, it's hard as teachers and especially as physical educators to go, well, no, we have to fill every moment with movement. We have to be going, but it's okay for kids to talk. And the social aspect, and Tim always tells the story of when you're playing slow pitch in the spring, and it's one of the reasons it's so great is, number one, it's a lifetime activity. Number two, kids can chill on the side and they can talk to each other and wait for their turn at bat. And that's okay. Like, that's part of what we're doing too.
Hello, everyone. It's Brenda Collin here from the University of Saskatchewan. And I've been in education at the university for over 30 years now in curriculum studies, teaching with pre-service teachers. And as a former classroom teacher and movement specialist, I'm trying to think out of two heads. And I'll just perhaps offer a few ideas. And I'm thinking about offering these to my my pre-service teachers, but I go back and I think in our Saskatchewan curriculum, our health curriculum focuses a lot on action plans. And I think part of physical education with students, sometimes as teachers, we think we have to provide all the solutions here and the how-tos, but students can self-initiate even at a very young age, kindergarten. How can I affect change in my physical activity and my physical education this week or for this month? What are 3 things that perhaps I might do to make a healthier life for myself? So they might chart their wise choices in snacks. They might chart what kind of physical activity they do, if they go walking with their parents 3 times a week, or they play some running tag games in their yard or even their home. If they just have to walk, you have to modify this depending on the context of where they're living. But trying to engage students with action plan and integrate your health and physical education together, so you inspire them to start to create some ideas for themselves. And then that might give you some assessment ideas too, because then the students can submit and produce how they did in their action plan and their successes, their struggles, etc. And it's very individualized. The other thing I was thinking, if I was in the classroom, and I try to think outside the gymnasium and the outdoors, which I love and promote myself, but if I was in the classroom, I keep thinking plastic. And so if I had a small plastic box for each student with their own equipment, and these are the kinds of things that I try to share with my students for in-class physical activity, meeting physical education outcomes, because when you don't have the bigger spaces. So each child could have a set of lummi sticks. And if you're not familiar with those, they can be easily culturally integrated with the Maori culture and the West Coast Aboriginal culture. And they can be either wood or plastic, and you might know them as music sticks or rhythm sticks. You could have cup stacks. And if you had a school cup stack set, what about having each student in your class, because there'll be limited numbers, have a set in their box? And then those could rotate throughout the school. Say every month they go to a different classroom. You have juggling scarves, a plastic ball, bean bags in the box, Indigenous ring tosses small. And all those plastic items can be thrown into a hot bucket of water and soap, and they could be washed. And I wouldn't say on a daily basis, but when you're going to transfer the cup stacks, those things can be washed and sanitized. Don't forget about the 4 squares on the floor. If you have tile in your classroom, you can do lots of cardio with 4 squares and lots of combinations of movement. You can teach lots of locomotor movements outside with the poly spots or the spray on the grass or the snow, lots of locomotor movements and fundamental movements there. And I think one thing too, this is a great opportunity for us to step outside the box, as has been shared by many of you. When you don't have the team, you don't have the equipment, you don't have the facility, how can I maintain physical activity in ways that I enjoy it? So inspiring kids to think about ways that different types of movement attracts them. So just a few things. My stress level has been over the mountains with trying to figure out how to do this online with pre-service teachers and the struggle in classrooms. And I wish everybody well, and just look forward to this continued conversation. I really appreciated PHE Canada taking the bull by the horns with this and providing us all the opportunity to further our knowledge in a very unknown area. And all the best to you, Doug, as you take over the reins.
Yeah, thanks, Brenda. Lots of good stuff in there. Thank you. So we have a few minutes left. I got about 3 minutes left on my clock. I won't say the time because the time's different for everyone, but so last thought, and I'll just reiterate again, I put it in the chat a couple of times, but this is recorded, and as well, the written chat is also kept. and so that when people post websites and different things in there, we have a record of those things too. So, and all those good ideas and people saying we've got to wear masks, we don't, we have this, we don't, those are in there too as a resource for us. So maybe I'll just ask if it looks like there's certainly an appetite for a monthly check-in. Someone was mentioning maybe after the first week or two back, just to check back in. So maybe a mid-September would be a good one for the next one. I'm wondering if we want to start to use some of the features on Zoom, like some of the breakout rooms where we could maybe split up into some smaller groups with, you know, maybe someone wants to talk about the change room, somebody else wants to talk about masks or sterilizing equipment or whatever. So we can, if you have those ideas, please let us know. Ellen also put her email address in the chat. So if your board is putting something together, like George was mentioning, that you can email those to Ellen and we'll figure out how to share those. And it doesn't have to be a work of art or something that's perfected or final. This is not a liability thing. This is just a sharing piece. Obviously, you'll have to run those by your own people in authority in your districts. But Lori, any other thoughts to add?
Just around when we're thinking about our chats going forward, we've been able to utilize kind of mid-afternoon just because our schedules have been so flexible after schools kind of were suspended in the spring. So we'll be probably looking at a late afternoon or an evening chat, so that we could try to accommodate as many of our members as possible. And so, we'll figure out a time frame. I think that will work best for everyone, and maybe that's just a quick survey that we can send out to figure out time frames. Also, your provincial associations are looking to restart their chats as well, so be looking for that information as we go forward, because yeah, there's some things that we can share on a national level, but it's also nice to be able to connect with specialists and educators within our own home provinces and talk about specific things that are happening within your own context. So please look out for your associations and get involved if you can. We so appreciate you taking your time. We know this has been really, really challenging for many of us, and but we're here for each other, and I think that's one of the most positive things that have come out of this. I have friends who are educators in other subject areas, and they don't work like this. They feel disconnected, very unsure of where they're going and how to make education meaningful in the environment that we currently find ourselves in. And even though we still feel a little unsure and uneasy about what's coming ahead, at least we have each other to bounce things off of and share. So I'm really appreciative of this group and being able to connect with all of you. So thank you so much. PHE Canada is here for you. Please check out the website, look at the resources. They are evidence-based, they are timely, and they are specifically written with low to no equipment. So they should be something that you're able to pick up and utilize right away. So thanks, and thanks to Doug for being my co-host again and my partner in crime through all of this. I really appreciate it. Any last thoughts, Doug?
No, you wrapped it up well. Thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of August and take care of yourselves.
We'll be in touch.